Invasive Procedures. Audiobook, written and recorded by David Wright. You'll feel a little sting, like a bee sting. The nurse smiled to no one. I felt the needle go in my flesh, but I couldn't tell you if it felt like a bee sting or not, nor could anyone else. The last bee died a century ago. I waited, but nothing else happened. Was that it? I asked. Is it? I pointed to my arm. No, that was just to numb the area. She put a bandage on my pinprick and snapped off her gloves. I'll be back in a minute to complete the procedure. She disappeared behind a curtain before I could ask any other stupid questions. Complete the procedure. That was one way to put it. I'd heard others. Upgrade, enhancement, evolution. Nobody ever called it what it was. When the first astronauts brought it back from space, you could forgive the euphemisms because they didn't know. They were just better than when they left. Smarter, healthier, more focused. Which is saying a lot considering they were already astronauts, probably some of the healthiest, most focused people on the planet. It wasn't until it started to spread to the general population that people really started to take notice. They stopped getting sick. Productivity went up. Crime went down. Not all at once, of course. Little by little, as the virus spread through fluid transfer, saliva, blood transfusions, sex, from contact to contact. And still nobody knew what was going on, only that things were getting better. But now we know what it is, and nobody seems to care anymore. Thanks for listening to Invasive Procedures. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Well, not nobody. There were fringe groups, conservative religious affiliations, communist governments, dystopian radicals. Heck, I was probably the last junior partner of my firm to hold out. I can't tell you why exactly, but I can tell you why I gave in. Fronti Kozinski. It was the last quarter general report, the one in which I was to make senior partner, a well-earned reward for nearly a decade of top gross earnings. At least until Fronti Kozinski skyrocketed ahead of me and took my seat at the big table. Fronti, who was never more than a mid-level apprentice, just had the procedure done, and suddenly Fronti was a new man. Somewhere along the line, I can't remember when exactly, scientists had isolated the root cause of this social transformation. An invasive species, an alien species that latches itself to the cerebral cortex of the human brain, causing marked changes in behavior. Apparently the astronauts had brought it back with them from outer space, and now it had spread to roughly 10,000 Americans and 1/1000th of the world's population. There must have been a huge uproar to this news. Perhaps attempts were even made to surgically remove the foreign invaders, but I don't remember any of that. When the dust finally settled, the simple fact remained. People were better human beings, with their symbiotic alien friends in their heads, than they were without them. In no arena was this more apparent than in the corporate world. It began as a PR stunt. Every division had to have an alien host on staff, whether they could justify the expense or not. And then two, and then whole teams. And they were likable, which only added to the movement, free of the usual vices that plagued most corporate drones. Long lunch breaks, petty pilfering, secret addictions, scandalous affairs. They became perfect employees, perfect people in every way. So no one saw it coming, at least not at first, not until the inevitable layoffs rolled round at the end of the quarter, and now we were fighting for our very lives. I saw former associates, 7-figure colleagues, homeless on the street, and then I saw Fronte, and my mind was made up. The nurse popped back from behind the curtain with a smile, but no eye contact. I'd be surprised if she remembered my name. I was about to make an offhand comment about something, I forget what, when I caught sight of the plastic cylinder in her hand. Is that... Yes, that's it. Her smile warmed again. Comfort? Condescension? Maybe a bit of both. Needless to say, she knew something I didn't, and that made her better than me, or so she must have thought. She popped off the bandage and pointed the considerably larger syringe at my arm. I struggled to see the microscopic alien lifeform swimming in the cylinder, but there was nothing but clear liquid. You'll feel a little... I pulled my arm back, and the nurse looked up at me for the first time since we'd met. Her eyes were azure, like a summer sky. I rubbed my arm. It felt foreign already, rubbery. The freezing had done its job. I like music, you know? The Beatles and Elvis. Maybe a little jazz. The nurse blinked, confusion. So the aliens weren't omniscient. That was good to know, at least. And hamburgers, sometimes with fries and ketchup, but sometimes with no fries. And walking on sand at 2 a.m. with bare feet so I can feel the grit between my toes. And cheap novels and B-movies, especially the old horror flicks in black and white. You know what I mean? I rubbed my arm. The nurse leaned back and tilted her head. I suppose there were procedures to follow for uncooperative patients like me. Nurses didn't have all day to mess around. Even hosts like her with aliens in their brains. You'll still like those things, she said, her smile returning. But maybe not jazz. I nodded, thinking it over again. That's okay, I guess. I never really liked jazz. The nurse laughed, and now I could see that she was actually quite pretty, and still human, I guess. You'll still do the same things you've always done. You'll still like the same things. You'll still be the same person, only... She paused a second, and my heart skipped a beat. Only what? I would be different? I would be a freak? An alien? But then she said, only better. And there was nothing weird in the way she said it either. That didn't quite settle it for me. After all, I already thought I was pretty great. It was the world that had gotten better without me. But then my mind was already made up before I ever entered the hospital. Fronte had made the decision for me. I put my arm back on the table and waited for the little bee sting. Who knows? Maybe bees would even come back someday. This time I hardly felt it as the needle went in. My arm was still numb. Slowly a warmth moved up to my shoulder. Maybe it was something. Maybe it was just my imagination. And then a tingling in my neck and base of my skull. I had the briefest moment of terror. And then absolute calm. Almost like the light going on in a dark room after a nightmare. The nurse was still smiling, searching my eyes. For what? But then I knew. I smiled back. I wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. Maybe this was it. The reason why we did stupid things in the first place. like lie and steal and ruin the planet, because we were always alone inside of our heads. So very alone. But not anymore. The end. Thanks for listening to Invasive Procedures, written and recorded by David Wright. Don't forget to like and subscribe.